everybody. Welcome back to another episode of God Built This Podcast. I'm your host, Maxine, and we're on episode 201. Okay. So I started a job. I have a place of employment. I am employed. Do you hear the joy in my voice? Yo, I feel like I'm a fucking joke sometimes. I feel like I'm on here, just like, I want a job. How come they don't want me, man? And then I do finally get one, or I get an offer that is like, okay, I guess I'll just do it for now. And I'm just incredibly underwhelmed, incredibly displeased, incredibly unimpressed, incredibly. And I've gotten, prior to accepting this offer, I've received previous offers. I'm not trying to sound like, I'm just receiving so many offers. I'm not trying to sound like that, but I'm just making that point that I have received 2 other offers from different positions that I applied to, and I was like, no. I said no to those positions because those positions were basically going backwards. I keep saying that I want to work a position that is outside of the classroom, that is not directly with students, that is more on the back end, which is why I keep on saying leadership positions. Leadership positions is more of when someone who is in the education field say, oh, I want to work in leadership positions, that means I don't want to work with kids. That's what that means. And there are direct positions that is majority of that. Now, sure, if you're in a school environment, you're going to, kids are literally your neighbor. You're going to work with them in a sense. But for the most part, you're not working with them, directly. You're not, in charge of a class. You're not delivering a lesson. You're not creating a lesson to deliver it, teaching it to 5 different sets of classes. You're not doing that. So when someone says they're looking for leadership positions, they're really about leading adults, leading people who are of age and not little kids. And I feel like I'm shooting at kids though. And I'm not trying to come off as such. I'm not. I'm over it. I don't know how many times I have to keep saying this. I'm over it. And it seems like no matter how many positions I've applied to, and yes, granted, I want to give myself not even the credit, the discredit, because I have put in applications for positions that are more aligned with working directly with kids. So I guess it's me trying to break out of that, but it's difficult because it's like, oh, no one's looking at my resume. I don't know. Anyway, so yeah. So when someone says I want to be in leadership, that's just code for I don't want to work with the damn kids anymore. I don't want to wipe snot, if you're working with little kids, and I don't want to talk to how was your day. I don't want to fucking do. I don't want to do. Am I a bitch? No, I don't want to do it. The fuck? So anyway, yeah, so the previous offers that I've received were, I guess it was just me feeling like, oh, let me just put an application in here, whatever, let me just see what happens. And though I was given an offer, so basically one of those positions were a substitute teaching position, which is, sure, there's flexibility in that, right? You're not necessarily, the full-time, you are working full-time hours, and I do believe that you will, I don't know, do they receive, I can't remember if the guy said as a sub, I would have received benefits. Either way, I'll be working full-time hours, so it would make sense for me to have received benefits. But anyway, it just, I didn't want to do it. I didn't want to do it. I did not want to do it. It's literally me going backwards. It's literally me going back to teaching a class, going back to classroom teaching, and granted, I won't necessarily be creating lesson plans and having to deal with the busy work of that. Cool. But like, I would rather do the busy work of, like, if I could just have a role of me just creating lessons and materials and curriculum plans rather than delivering it, to kids, then I would be more interested in a position like that. But, with the teaching role, you're teaching said material. You have to be present. You have to ensure that all students are learning. And like, even on your bad day, like if you're not into it, you're not helping the students out. Like, you're not giving them a service of providing them with quality education. So there really is, like, you could have a bad day as an adult, right? You woke up on the wrong side of the day, on the bed or whatever, but it shouldn't dictate how you teach, because said student or students shouldn't have to suffer and not receive proper education just because you're having a bad day, right? Like, so that's my mindset in it too. Like, if I'm not all the way in it, then I don't want to like do that to the kids. Like, damn, I don't anyway. So there was that position. And again, it would have been the same situation as a regular full-time teacher. I would have been, in charge of a particular class, whether it's like a full-time sub for a particular class or just like an on-call sub for several different classes. It depends on what would have been available. But that was an offer made to me. And I was like, you know what? No. And at that time, I was really banking on a position that I applied for that was in the ed tech field. And I was really just looking forward to potentially starting that job. But I didn't get it. I did not get it. Although I made it to the final round and the odds seemed like, they really liked me, and it just didn't work out. It is what it is. And but prior to me receiving that news, I was really banking on, okay, I'm going to work that position and I'll work another position to supplement that income, because that position was part-time. I had a whole plan in my head. Okay, I'm gonna work these two part-time jobs, and one of the part-time job was gonna be the ed tech position that I didn't get, and I would have been like more focused on that job, while the other part-time job that I'm currently working, I would have just worked that job, but just been like, present, but not, minimally present, minimally there. Anyway, so that was one offer that I declined previous to this one. Another offer that I received was of this, so I don't know how to describe it. Basically, it's like this pull-out classroom teaching situation where I will pull out particular students who are struggling in the classroom. They have poor grades. Their scores in state tests are poor, and my goal is to make them progress in their test taking skills, in their goals academically, all these things, right? And that is a direct teaching position. Now the difference is I wouldn't be teaching a whole class, but I will be teaching to students, which is what I'm trying to avoid, right? And I will be, but still teaching in a smaller setting. Now, okay, but I don't want to do that either, because that would be regressive as well. And I say that because at the start of my teaching career, that's how I started. That's literally how I started. I didn't teach a full class. I instead was pulling out particular students in particular classes to support them in whatever skill that they're lacking in. And I would have like lessons for them, prepare, practice things with them, like all these things. And that's literally how I started off 10 years ago in my teaching career. That's how I started off. And to regress back to that position is just like, and that's no shot to anyone who's currently in that field, right? Or currently in that position. It's just that I don't want to do that. That's point blank. I don't want to do that anymore. Like, I don't want to go back to how I started. I don't want to go back to a role that I have been desperately trying to get out of. And so basically that position was offered to me, and I had to just finally let her know after thinking about it for like, because I went through the interview process. She was basically making it seem like it was mine. And she said, oh, yeah, the position is yours. I really like you. There was another step to the interview process, was like I had to record myself on video in response to these scenario questions. What the fuck? And I felt like that was just like a turn off. Like, first of all, we already had an initial interview on Zoom. You asking me, basically, she already asked me scenario questions. And she already asked me scenario questions in the initial interview. So for you to then request for me to complete the second step, and then she said, yeah, just complete the second step, and I'll present you with the offer. And then I was thinking to myself, like, I don't want to do this. Like, I don't want to film a video, record myself just to then be presented an offer for a position that I don't really want, that I don't even want to do this shit. And so, and then she was like, oh, she's the schools that she would push in are like underserved, right? So those underserved, like, she was chalking it up very much very unenticing. Okay. And look, I wouldn't say I worked in like underserved schools. Now, like, I have worked in charter schools throughout my teaching career, and yes, those charter schools have been predominantly Hispanic or African American, definitely a minority of white people. But I wouldn't say that they were poor, right? I wouldn't say it was an underserved community. Like, they were fresh. Like, they weren't dirty. They weren't like, they weren't just like low down, welfare kid. Like, it wasn't like that. Like, no student have I served throughout my career was that stereotypical image. So that has been my experience. And also, the schools that I've worked in, again, have all been charter schools, have all been, for the most part, properly supplied. Now, sure, there have been times when the Chromebooks, which is just a laptop, basically, in case you don't know, a Chromebook, maybe one or two Chromebooks were broken, and, one or two students in the classroom were without a Chromebook. That would be like, the inequity that's going on. But as far as like, how some like real public school, like these New York, DC public school teachers will talk about, I have to go to Michael's and purchase folders and notebooks for my students. Huh? I never had to do that shit. What the fuck what? Do you know how much you're paying me and I'm going to use my money to pay? Fuck out of here. No, I never in my life had to do that. And maybe I'm blessed, but I'm not doing that shit. What the fuck? Am I a horrible person? No, but like, we always, like, for the most part, we had enough. We had what we needed. And in times when we didn't have enough lined paper, I will put in a request. I would speak to the administrative person. I would speak to, whoever is in charge of supplies, and they will provide me with the said supplies that I am needing. But I never had to go to fucking Michael's or go to Dollar Tree to buy 20 notebooks for my class because, the school doesn't provide. Like, that's never been my story. I never understood that plight. I never in my life. I don't give a fuck. I'm not buying what should have been supplied. Okay? So we both gonna look at each other like, whoop. Like, I'm not doing that. That the school's job. So thankfully, I've never been in a school where I felt like I had to do that, or, you know, I wouldn't even have been in that position. That's not even, no. So I would just be in the classroom like, well, yeah, the school's not supplying. Oh, so I'm just going to sit here and watch these kids. Because absolutely not. Absolutely not. I'm not doing that. That's still, the kids are being disserviced. That's on the school and the system and the district. Figure it out. I'm not going to spend the little money that I am making, especially at that time starting off. I'm gonna spend that little money that I'm making and go to fucking Target to buy 50 sets of composition notebooks. If you don't get the fuck out of my face, I gotta pay my rent. Like, what are we talking about? And well, at the time I didn't have rent. I was living at home. Anyway, so I'm working a new job. I just started the other day. And like I said, I am incredibly... Look, something about me is I like order, you know, not odor. Order in the court. I like order. I like structure. I like an agenda. What's the plan, you know? And, you know, there were some signs from the initial interviews that I had with this current employment that was obvious to me that they didn't have their stuff together, or that they didn't have answers to questions that I have, right? Like, so for example, I remember in my initial interview, I was asking about so the initial role that I applied for was an academic coach. And again, yeah, it's still kind of in alignment with directly working with students. But at that time, I'm like, oh, let me just put in an application, whatever. So I arrived to the interview. I'm presenting myself. I'm very, you know, polished. I'm saying everything clearly and presenting my chops and my skills and like really harping on the fact that I'm interested in a leadership position, right? You know, again, leadership is code for not working with kids. I want to just work with adults. I want to do the back end. I want to do stuff like that. So they, were impressed, and they were saying how, basically that they want to first discuss with each other what position will be best for me, considering all that I have to offer. And at first I was like, what? Like, what the fuck are you talking about? So now y'all got to talk to each other and figure out a position? Like, what? But in my head, I'm also like, okay, well, maybe this is a head nod to just the greatness of me, you know, how great I am. Sounds so conceited. No, but in my head, I was thinking that too. Like, okay, well, let me just use this as a moment to be proud of myself. Like, wow, look at them. They're scrambling to figure out what position they can make for me. That's cool, right? So anyway, they ended up giving me the position of educational consultant, which is a fancy title, right? It's a fancy title, and I think it means different for different organizations. And I feel like sometimes, you know, titles like that, they present one way, but it's really all just smokes and mirrors. And so basically when I was asking them about like, okay, well, what exactly am I doing? Right? Like, what the fuck am I doing? They're like, they didn't really have an answer. They're just like looking at each other like, well, you know, they were just going over the different services that they provide to clients and how they work for a nonprofit. So whether that's a school or a church. And when they said that, they weren't specific about, like, what are you doing? Like, what are you doing at the nonprofit? Like, what are we doing? They also said how they have tutoring services and how, like, you know, yes, they recognize, because I did say, like, I would rather work in, like, the leadership position, like, not working directly with students. They did say, you know, we would have you just do minimal tutoring jobs. So I'm like, okay, well, maybe just one or two tutoring positions I could take under this role. I'll just, whatever, I'll be fine. As long as, like, because in my head I'm thinking, like, okay, well, I'll just take on 2 tutoring, situations as long as the majority of my role is consistent of the leadership position that I have been exclaiming. So, yeah, that didn't happen. It didn't happen. So, anyway, let's fast forward. Okay, so yeah, there's that, right? So, that's the red flag in my head. Like, okay, well, I ask you a direct question. You can't give me a straight answer. I even asked direct questions of, like, what are my hours, right? Like, what is, I understood that it was part-time. We talked about vaguely, how many hours do you want to work? Because they asked me, how many hours do you want to work weekly? And in my head, considering how much I knew they were paying an hour, I was like, okay, well, let me work 30 hours a week, right? Is that even yeah, I think that's part-time, but like at least 25 hours a week. That could hold me down until I find something else has a supplement or something else has a hole, right? So that was my mindset. So I said that, like, at least 25 to 30 hours weekly. Their response wasn't really, they just was like head nodding. Like, it's like they couldn't really confirm the hours for me, right? So it's like, okay, we're speaking in vague terms. Okay, what is a 30-hour work week? What is a 25-hour work week? Like, what does that look like on a daily? Am I not working on Friday, or am I? Am I working from 9 to 3, or am I not? Like, or are some days I'm working from 8 to 2 while the other day I'm working? Like, what does that look specifically? Give me the schedule and just make it plain, make it neat and make it plain. But they couldn't provide me any of that. So I'm like, okay, let me just wait, right? Let me just wait, Maxine. I'm just being too anal. I gotta let go of control. I'm like trying to like talk myself down. Like, well, I didn't talk myself down too much, but like for the most part, I'm trying to just be okay with the fact that I don't have all the answers. Especially when I'm being asked questions like, oh, so like, do you know the bed? I was like, I don't know. But when I read the contract, so anyway, I was given the offer for this position that I obviously accepted. And I read, this is like the first time in a while since I've read a contract, like a work offer contract. And I'm reading the contract, and there was a section that made it clear that, okay, there are no benefits provided within this position, considering that it's part-time, which was clear to me, was obvious to me. Okay, fine. But still, other things just wasn't clear to me, like the hours, like just specifically what is my role? Like, what am I doing? Yeah, you gave me this title, but like, what does that look like on a Monday? What does that look like on a Tuesday? Like, what am I doing? And mind you, I asked these questions during the interview, like, and they answered in these vague ass terms. But in my head, I had this plan, like, okay, well, I'll just work this job and supplement, because I was really banking on the other position that I didn't get, whatever. Anyway, fast forward to first day of work, which was still unclear to me. So prior to the first day at work, I complete these training sessions, these online training modules I completed, which was, it was convenient that it was online. So I appreciate that. I didn't have to go in for that. I just completed it online. And, keep on saying, I'm sorry. So I'm trying to remember. Oh my gosh, my mind is blanking right now. Okay, so anyways, I completed the training modules and just like the orientation and whatever. So I knew the first day of quote unquote work was starting soon, but I was sitting in this state of confusion because I don't know when I'm clocking in. Like, what are we doing here? So I I finally received an email from one of the team members, and she's like speaking very just casual, which I hate. I hate when you're in a leadership position and you're casual about it. Now, I don't need you to be a dictator, right? I don't need you to, like beat me up with your belt. Like, I just need you to be clear about what you're saying and stand in that. Like, I don't want you to use y'all. Like, what are you talking like? Why are you talking like that to me? Like, I don't want to, like, we're not friends, like, I don't want you to be so cavalier and laissez-faire about things. Like, you're setting the ground rules, or like, you're telling me about the schedule. You're telling me what time to come. Like, you should be clear in your speech, and you should be the authority that your role presents. This woman is not. She's totally not. So anyway, she sent me an email, super cavalier, and she's like, oh, the program starts this date, and hey, I was thinking we could meet for planning on these days. And that's all she says. I was thinking we could meet for planning on these days. She gives me 3 days. So in conjunction, these 3 days will be the days we will meet for planning. That's all she says. What's wrong with that, Maxine? What's wrong with that is, what the fuck are you talking about? First of all, why are you saying you're thinking? Why are you so like unsure? And I'm thinking, what is the agenda? What time do you want to meet? Right? Like, what is the plan? Like, she's not saying, good morning, everyone. As you know, this date is the start of our program. Let's meet Monday, Tuesday, from 8 to 4 or 8 to 12 to discuss the agenda. Please see attached the agenda. Like, be detailed. I come from a workplace where everything was laid out. It was detailed. You knew what was expected. You knew what this meeting was going to be about. And when she said very cavalier, I was thinking we could meet on these days, I was just thinking to myself, like, okay, for what? Like, what? I wasn't opposed to meeting, of course, but it was just like, what are we meeting about? Like, what is the plan? What is the agenda? What's the objective here? Like, what are we doing? Am I just meeting just to meet? Like, what? Time is money. So anyway, so she didn't say the time, right? So I'm like, okay. I then respond, and I'm like, okay, sounds good. What time frame are you thinking for these days? Y'all, she never responded. Mind you, this is the weekend before the start date. And I'm like, okay, I know she obviously won't respond on a weekend, on a Saturday or Sunday, but like, therefore you should be responding to me immediately. And my question was very straightforward. Like, why aren't you responding? Like, what time are we meeting? You say you want to meet on these days. What time? So she didn't respond, right? So it's the day of the first day. Literally the day of the first day. And still no response. Still no, like, morning email. There's no, like, newsletter. There's nothing that sets the tone for the start. And I'm like, okay. So I'm talking to my dad. I'm like, Dad, I don't know when I'm starting. I don't know when I'm starting. I don't know what I'm doing. And at this point, obviously, it's laughable, right? I'm laughing with y'all because it's like, what the fuck is going on? And I think something about, like, these small businesses, they just don't know what they're doing, which is just the weirdest thing to me. Like, some of them, like, present this persona as if they do, right? Like, oh, here's the materials that we have, here's our objective, and here's the services that we provide. But when it comes down to really telling me about what are you doing every day, like what is your daily duty, the explanation is very unclear. I know they provide tutoring services, but they really focus on, like, you're not necessarily teaching them a skill. You're just supporting them in their homework help or whatever the case is. And it just, I don't know, like, it's just not clear. So anyway, so she never responded. It's the day of the first day, and still no response, still no initial morning email, none of that. So I decided to double email her, basically. You know how people say double text, right? I double email her. In that same email thread, I said, "Good morning. Could you please clarify what time would you like for me to fucking come in? Like, you saying these specific days, today is that first day, and you haven't emailed me about any of what the details, like, what am I doing? Like, what if I was expected to come in the morning and I'm not there because you didn't tell me? Now it's looking bad on me on the first day. Like, like, I'm trying to have a good impression, but it's just, you're not helping me." So she finally responds and she says, "Oh, I believe the hours are," what did she say? Like, the way that she responded was like, she didn't know herself. Like, she didn't know herself. Like, oh, so she's basing the hours for us to meet for this planning meeting. She's basing it off of this other service that the company provides at a different location. And basically what I ended up doing was I ended up going to two different locations. The first location was the main office, and the second location was this nonprofit organization where I would, and I'll talk about that in a moment. So anyway, that was the two locations I ended up going to for my first day. And the goal was to initially meet with her and this other guy who, at first, based off of his first name, I thought he was Hispanic. And then I remember, oh no, he's that black guy who was, I won't get into details about him, but he's another one. Like, do you know what you're doing? So anyway, so she responded. She was like, because I was like, good morning, and I want to clarify what time you will want, you want for me to meet with you for our planning. The fuck that you said to me in the beginning. She says, oh, she knows the times are blank to blank for the program, so maybe we can do blank to blank at the office. And again, at the office to give y'all time to get over to the campus. And again, the lack of clarity and the lack of confidence in this email response. Like, why are you using the word maybe? What do you mean, so maybe we can do? What do you mean, y'all? Why are you speaking? Like, am I your friend? Like, why are you talking like that? I just never in my life seen someone who is the hiring manager essentially speaking like that to their employee, very cavalier, and it's like, why are you saying so maybe? What time do you want me to come in? What means so maybe? Like, is this a choice of mine? Like, do I have to choose? Or are you telling me? I just never been in a position where, man, maybe that's a part-time thing, who knows? But like, I never been in a position where like, oh, you could choose whether or not you want to meet at this time. Sorry. But like, I'd never been in that position. So for her to be like, oh, so maybe we could meet at this time. What are you talking about? Are we meeting at this time or not? So I'm like, okay, that, sounds good, whatever. I could meet. Obviously I can, right? Like, it's my first day. I'm going to meet. So I get there and there's no agenda, of course, right? Because in the email, she didn't say, yes, we're meeting at this time from blank to blank, and here's the objectives. We're going to go over X, Y, and Z, all of that, right? So I arrive at the office, ready to meet, ready to plan, whatever that looks like. I'm just going to be present. I'm going to be in the moment. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to go in with my head just clear, ready to be the great worker that I am, the cheerful worker, right? Doesn't the Bible talk about that? Be a cheerful worker. Like, I'm trying to be that because sometimes I'm just like, I don't know, maybe I'm lazy. Maybe it's laziness. I don't think I'm lazy. I just think I don't have time for the bullshit. Like, what are we talking about? It's not like I don't want to do the work. It's just that, what is the work? You know? Anyway, so I get there. Nothing is like set up necessarily. Like, there's no like meeting room set up. Very casual. She's on her computer. The other person that was supposed to join us, she's still on a call. And that's just annoying to me. Like, what the fuck? You said you wanted to meet. Well, you said maybe this time. Why wasn't this a concrete time? Like, why aren't we like being like specific about what we're doing? So then she says, oh, so-and-so is still on her call, so we'll just wait a few minutes. Okay. So then the guy who I ended up working with at the next location, just me and him, he ends up coming at the time that he said. And so now it's me and him and her. She is still like she's like kind of running around, not really clear, just kind of like, okay. She speaks to him. No, nothing is happening. She's giving us these like activities, right? Like, oh, here are these games you could use. You know, you could take these Legos and you could do this, you could do that. And it's like, nothing is like clear. No one's saying, oh, the grade level. Okay, so here, like, she's not saying, all right, so at this location, you will be, you know, working with first graders, second grade. Like, none of that was said. And mind you, I had to be the one to ask, where is this location that y'all talking about? Because I said to her, like, oh, it's the side of the program. No, she said, I hope you guys are following along. I'm sorry. I just don't want to be too specific. But anyway, so she was like, yeah, you know, give you guys enough time to go to the campus. And I'm like, where is this camp? What are you talking about? Where are we going? Because nowhere in my training, nowhere in the initial interview am I being told specifically, where am I going? Like, no one literally gave me an address. So I had to be the one again to say, hey, what's the address? What? She's like, oh, the address is X, Y, and Z. So I'm like, okay, cool. We get the address. So, but prior to us going, again, in this planning, the planning wasn't even a planning meeting. Like, we're not even talking about the goals, you know, here's what we're going to do today. Here's the agenda, you know, here are the names of the students that are signed up. Some may not come on the first day, some may. Like, none of that was clear. So I'm just sitting there like, okay. So anyway, the guy who I was working with, I'm like, what, should I give him another name? Let's call him Wobble. I'm a fucking asshole. I'm gonna call him Wobble, okay? Not even gonna say just Wobble, okay? So Wobble, he's like in a rush, in a frenzy in a way. Like, he's kind of like, he sits down and he's like collecting these materials. I mean, he's cool. He's a nice guy. He's fine, whatever. Like, oh, you know, he's a fine gentleman type of, like, whatever, fine. But even he, for someone who has worked there apparently for a couple of years, because I did ask him, he doesn't know what the fuck he's doing either. Like, I remember asking my direct question, like, oh, you know, what's the agenda? Like, what's the setup? You know, just like, straightforward questions that you should be able to answer regardless of anything. So he's giving me the excuse of, oh, it's their first day at this particular location. Okay, sure, cool. Maybe that's a good enough excuse, but it's not though. It's not though, because what you could have said in addition to that response was, though it's our first day at this location, what I've done in previous locations were X, Y, and Z. And this is what I've done previously. We could continue to do it this way. Or if you have any ideas, please share with me and we could collaborate. Like something like that. Yet he didn't answer any of that clearly. He was just like, well, it's our first day and we'll just kind of go with the flow. And today's going to be just like a getting to know you introduction day. Okay, but like after introduction, like we're not just gonna play. We have to like, what's the fucking order? What are we doing? Still nothing. So we get there. Mind you, we're driving there separately. I'm in my own car, thank God. And he's in his own car. We get there, or actually I had to make a quick stop. I had to get some gas. But I had the address, of course. But I'm trying to get there and I'm realizing I don't know if I'm in the right location. Anyway, I ended up contacting him. I didn't have his number initially. I ended up getting his number through someone else, through another team member, and asking him like, hey, I don't think I'm at the right location, but ended up being on the right location. Anyway, so I get there. It's just like it's a church. It's okay. It's a church, which is fine. Praise the Lord. But my gosh, like everything was like holy, holy, thou art holy, holy. And it was just like, oh, wow. Ooh, throwback. It was cute, but it was just like, okay. Anyway, so we get there. We have all these like materials, these like play games, these coloring pages, and he has like light not math stuff, but like connect the dots by following the order number, the number of order or number in order. So like, you trace the line 1, 2, 3, 4. Word games and stuff like that. But some of the activities were just too advanced, which made it unclear to me as to like specifically what grade level are we serving right now. The only students that came in were kindergarten age and a few second graders, but that's it. So like the activities that we had, sure, it was okay, but some of them were just too advanced. Like the first, mind you, okay, I don't know, the whole setup was just so confusing. It was so confusing because apparently we had to transition them into their other enrichment activity with the YMCA, which no one said. We found out right on the spot, and I'm just sitting there like, okay, but how long do we have with these sets of students? Wobble is like, he doesn't know. He's just like, the way he talks is just like super like unsure of himself. Like he starts off his speech by saying, oh, I was under the impression. Oh, I believe again, where's the confidence? What are we talking about? Especially if you've been working here for 5+ years. Why are you always under the impression? Anyway, so we get to the hour of, oh, we have no students with us anymore. Like, they're gone. They're with the enrichment folks. And I asked him to clarify, like, are there going to be more students coming in? And he said, no. I'm like, okay, so we're done, right? Because I just don't understand, why am I still here if there are no kids here, right? If I'm not like, doing a job, essentially. He's like, oh, yeah. I'm like, oh, so we're still... He's like, oh, yeah, just stay here until, like, 6. Just kind of, like, stay here until 6. I'm like, oh, okay. I'm speaking just like this. I'm like, oh, okay. And he says, so anyway, well, they're talking about the next day, right? And I ask a question like, okay, well, I asked him directly, basically, what is the plan? Because apparently we're only going to have less than 5, like literally just 3 students on the next day. And so I say to him, you know, what exactly, like, do we have to be here at this particular time? Because what was told to us is these students will come at 4, right? And us coming at 3 or whatever time, I don't see how that makes, like, why? He's like, yeah, I'm just gonna come here at 3 or, you know, sometimes 2:55, whatever, and I'm just gonna read a book in the meantime. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, I don't know. I'm just incredibly unimpressed. I'm under the impression of being unimpressed. Like, I'm just incredibly unimpressed. There's no clarity. There's no structure. It's just, I don't know. Maybe it's just a first day thing. Maybe it's just a first day thing, but yeah, I'm probably going to quit this job. Let's just say that. I'm probably just going to go. We'll see. I'm trying to see what my next steps are. I do have an upcoming interview with another position that would be a full-time position. So if all goes well with that, that'll be great. But yeah, I'm just like, I don't know. Everything's a fucking joke at this point. Like, everything's a joke. Like, I just hate how, you know, you have these like small companies or startups or smart companies or whatever, and they don't know what they're doing, and they present as if they do. And it seems like, oh, it's like a quaint, cute community, whatever. But they're just all over the place. And you're having to, like, pick up pieces or create pieces to put together to gain some clarity and some order. I'm just, like, really turned off over the fact that it's the first day. I don't get an email clarifying what time I'm supposed to be coming in. I don't get an email clarifying what agenda will be fulfilled for said position. I'm even asking, like, you know, what specific duties am I to fulfill at this local, like, you know, like, what are those duties? And she gives me this attachment. I read through it. She's talking about, like, oh, put them in 4 stations, and I'm reading through it, and it doesn't make any sense, because if you look at the time frame, this doesn't, like, mathematically is incorrect. Like, I can't spend 15 minutes doing this with one station while making sure the other stations are fulfilled, and I just have 3 students. Like, what are we I don't know. Anyway, I just want to give you guys an update about this job journey that I'm on. And look, I don't know. I'm on this Reddit page, and it's called Career Change, and I'm also on another page called Anti-Work. And I came across a post of someone saying how they got a job, they got 2 different jobs, and they quit those jobs immediately. They quit, like, they got those jobs. Like, this person was saying how he got this job, these 2 jobs, and within a month he quit those jobs. He quit those same jobs that he started. And I think that's exactly what I'm gonna do. And I hope I have another situation lined up. I really do. Like, oh my gosh. I don't know. I'm dreading everything. And it's not like I'm anti-work necessarily. It's just, I'm anti the bullshit. Like, I'm anti doing things that I said I don't want to do. And I'm in a position where it's like, oh, I'm doing it though. Like, I'm doing what I said I didn't want to do, or I'm working directly with kids and I didn't want to do it. And though I said, oh, well, it's okay, you know, I'll just do it for just a small percentage of my role, It's not like that. And the lack of clarity of what my role is just very frustrating to me. Like, what else am I doing? You know, what else is the plan? You know, what's the vision here? What's the goal? And they say all these words. I remember I asked that question too, and she just wasn't really clear. She's just saying how, like, oh, they have a branch in Florida and they go to professional development sessions in Florida. And okay, but what the fuck? What does it have to do with my role right now? What is the vision for my role? Right? What do you want from me? You know, do you just want me to be there? I remember completing the training, and we got to, not even the training, it was the contract. After I read through every word, because I definitely was reading every little thing, I read through the contract. I got to the section where I'm inputting my bank account information for direct deposit. And I think I saw something like, also provide a voided check. What? Who still has what's a check? Like, what are you talking? And I never did that. I did not do that. I just put in my bank info, and no one has asked me, oh, I noticed that you still haven't sent in your bank info, your blank check, your voided check. Please do so to ensure, you know, successful payment. Like, none of that was said to me, so I'm hoping no issues arise by me not doing that. So who knows? But I'm not doing that because I don't fucking have who has a checkbook? What is a checkbook? Like, bitch, you got Cash App? Like, what's a checkbook? Like, what is that? I haven't had a checkbook. Like, imagine me going to Chase Bank. Hi, can you guys give me a check? Like, what? And I gotta wait 5 to 7 business days? Anyway, I'm annoyed. I'm frustrated. I'm feeling lightheaded. Like, I'm just lightheaded, as in, like, just light about it. Like, I'm just like, oh, you know what? Whatever. Let's kind of like laughing about it. That's how I'm feeling. I'm not feeling like lightheaded, as in I'm about to faint. But just annoyed. Like, there's no reason to be angry at this point anymore. There's no reason to feel like depressed, or it's just like, you know what? Okay. Like, anyway. So that's what's going on. And I don't even know if that made any sense. I hope I made some clarity or some sense throughout my explanation. And I'm already thinking of like what my exit email is gonna look like. I already have an idea. But this is just so ridiculous. So ridiculous. Like, just incredibly poorly done. And even today, like, I think I'm working today, but I don't even know. I really don't even know. And today, I was told, on my first day, I was told for today that only 3 students will arrive, and these students will come at this specific time, and that's it. So it's like, okay, if they're only gonna come at this specific time, I'm talking to Wobble. He's like, oh, I'm still gonna come here at 3, or, you know, whatever. I'm looking at him like, why? And again, he doesn't have any clarity. He's just gonna sit there with his Wobble ass, just like, so fucking annoying, dog. Like, what are you, child? I don't know. I don't know. Do I even show up today? That's the question. Should I just ghost them at this point? When I tell you I am already dreading, and again, it's not about work. It's not like, no, if I was working a job, I really do believe in the whole statement of don't work. What did they say? You know, you stop working once you love what you do. Basically saying, like, once you love what you do, it doesn't feel like work. It feels just like, you know, just doing what you love. And that's just what I'm experiencing, I feel like. It's not like I'm anti-work. I joined that Reddit page because it's hilarious, you know? And it talks about, like, just like how work systems here in America is just laughable. But it's not that I'm anti-work. It's just I'm anti this work. That's what it is. I'm not anti-work in general. And I don't think it's a dream job necessarily. Like, I don't look at it as a job. Like, when I think of the word job, I think job and work is the negative connotative words that I'm speaking to. Doing what I love, right? I want to do what I love and make money from it. So calling it work and saying it's a job takes away the goodness, the good feeling, I'm happy to do, it takes that away from it. So anyway, I don't know if I'm going in today. Nothing has been said. No email has been sent. I think I will be, just going, but if anything, I'm just going to go at the time that was initially said. I don't know what I'm doing. But yeah, I'm incredibly unimpressed, underwhelmed. Just a lot of incompetence going on, and I feel like I'm coming off like a bitch, right? Oh my god, you're so good. It's not that. It's just, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, first of all, know how to speak to people. Like, know how to be a leader. Know how to effectively communicate. And I just hate. I pride myself on my communication skills. I really do. I really pride myself on my communication style. So it just irritates me when someone who is in a position of leadership, right, a position that I am like putting on this pedestal, right, I want a leadership position, and then seeing, witnessing someone in a leadership position not be an effective leader. And in part of being an effective leader is someone with strong communication skills. And for you to not demonstrate that and kind of leave me hanging, not be clear about what my hours are, use insecure language like maybe, and I'm thinking, and I believe, and I'm under the impression. It's like, what? And then you got Wobble over here just... Nigga doesn't know what he's doing. He doesn't know what he's doing. He gave me this worksheet. He's like, oh, you think the kids will like this? And I looked at the worksheet. I'm like, this is too advanced. I'm not giving these kindergartners a word search. Like, what are we talking about? I should have asked him what his background is, but I didn't want to come off too strong. Like, oh, what's your role here? I remember when I was first introduced to him, they did say, oh, he's our da-da-da-da, but I totally forgot. Because he doesn't demonstrate that. So I don't know what his role is. Like, no one said, oh, is he the point person? He's your point person if you have questions regarding this. He's your go-to guy. And he doesn't, like, none of that was clarified. Okay? So when he handed me a fucking worksheets that are too advanced, that are more on the level of 4th grade for these kindergarten kids, I'm looking at him, I'm like, yeah, this is too advanced. So he's like, oh, okay. He's wobbling his ass like he doesn't fucking know. Oh my gosh, dog. Yeah, I'm dreading it. Yeah, so we'll see. I'll keep y'all updated. Am I gonna show up for the next day of employment? Am I going to quit? Am I going to wait until I secure another job before I quit? Tune in on the next episode of God Built This Podcast. Tune in, because at this point, what do y'all think? We actually put like a poll. Does Maxine quit early? Does Maxine even show up? Or does Maxine wait until she secure another position before quit? What have I done historically? Lean more towards that answer. But the question is, but Maxine, shouldn't you learn your lesson? You shouldn't be quitting before you secure. Shut up. No. I mean, look, there's something to that. I get it, right? Don't quit a job until you have another job. What? I don't know. Maybe I should just bank on my faith on this new job coming up, right? I haven't even had the interview yet for this other job, so we'll see how that goes. I don't put all my eggs in that basket. Okay. Let me get myself together. At the very least, let me just complete this week. My next interview is happening in the few days. Hopefully I get the confirmation, get that offer in that interview. That'll be great. And I'm out of this current job. I'm out. I'll just be out. I'm not gonna do the whole 2 weeks bullshit. Anybody got time for that? Like, who really does a 2 week? Yeah. So that's where I'm at. That is a job update. Again, tune in on the next Dragon Ball Z to see what will happen next for me. Because at this point, everything's a joke at this point. Everything's a joke. I don't know what is what. I'm feeling very, not to kind of shoot at my faith or like religion or God or anything. It's just like, I don't feel like I'm hearing from him, right? I don't feel like I'm getting the answers that I want, or just answers, period. Like, I don't think I'm getting the clarity that I've been yearning for. Every time I pray, I'd be like, oh, guide me, tell me what to, basically, like, I don't know what to do, da-da-da. And I've never gotten a clear answer as to what to do. I really don't know. So that's where I'm at right now. I think I'm just at a point. I'm not frustrated with God. It's not that. It's just I'm kind of over it at this point. I'm kind of over like crying out to him. I'm kind of over like feeling like, oh my God, like, because before I was very much, I'm gonna pray every time at this hour. I'm gonna complete this devotion. I'm gonna read this Bible and read this verse and speak life. I still believe in speaking life, and like I still believe in like certain principles, of course, from the Bible. Like that will just always stay with me. But I feel like as far as life and going about life, I'm guiding myself, really. Like, there are people along the way who may help, of course, right? Maybe I'll get some like supernatural assistance as well as natural assistance. But as far as like getting saved and being declared a voice of guidance, I don't know if I believe in that anymore. Like, I just don't receive that. And I feel like I'm putting so much stock into this like supernatural thing that I'm not having any success with at the moment. And it's just frustrating. Like, okay, well, what the fuck are we doing? Anyway, so that's where I'm at. I'm gonna go ahead and end the episode here. Thank you so much for listening, and I will check in with you guys next time. Peace. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of God Built This Podcast with your host, Maxine. Be sure to leave a review, give me 5 stars, and of course, subscribe. Also, follow God Built This Podcast on Instagram at God Built This Pod. God bless.